Well, let's get into it. Leon must die forever. Capcom has gone ahead and released this new game mode ahead of the scheduled DLC, which should be coming to Resident Evil Requiem in the future. While fans have already speculated that this mode would be additional content, it is exciting to see how it all came together. Now, with that in mind, I did want to make this video to talk about potential ideas and concepts that I had that should be included in a Requiem DLC. While we can talk about what was released with this new additional bonus mode, I do want to dive into some ideas of other bonus modes that could be seen in the future. First things first, I was hoping for Resident Evil 7 levels of bonus content. Let's start there. While there has been a varying degree of bonus modes released for each of Resident Evil's previous titles, I do want to say that Resident Evil 7 hit it on the nail when it came to additional content. So with Requiem, I was hoping, or I am hoping for, is that Capcom sticks to that when it comes to this upcoming DLC. Leon Must Die feels like raid mode. Defeat enemies, gain points, add upgrades to your character. Start each section with different upgrades. Complete each area. Reach victor within a time limit. What's cool about this mode is it gives fans who want to skip through some of the sections the opportunity to just play as Leon. While each playthrough can vary, with upgrades and pickups being random, I did think for this mode we would get the opportunity to use more of the unlockable weapons that we see in the base game. Instead of, during the base game, you can only use certain weapons at certain points in the game. Now let's talk about Grace. This idea is what made me want to make this video. Something that was heavily showcased during the promo, which ultimately led to being showcased during early demos, was the intro of the Chronic Care Center. This area where Grace is chased by the girl, and we get to learn the mechanic of using light to get around. Very simple concept. This felt like it highlighted the horror elements of the game the most. But something that came to mind is something that we don't really get to see as the game progresses. Grace ultimately finds new ways to get around the care center using blood injectors, crafting items, managing the Requiem, crafting knives, using a handgun. But this small part of the game could be expanded. What if there were more dark areas in Requiem where Grace had to get around with just the lighter? This could also work throughout different areas of the map that we are already accustomed to. Changing the lighting, changing the atmosphere, and giving the same element of horror that we see with Grace in this section, making Grace utilize little to no items to survive and escape. This concept leads into my next idea, which may be less enjoyable for some, but for me, looking at Leon's sniper section, this area made me think of how in Resident Evil 6, when the campaigns intersect, example, Chris and Piers, Jake and Sherry. Chris and Piers are dealing with the helicopter, while Jake and Sherry are below, dealing with the infected that are swarming them. Another example, Leon and Helena defends Jake and Sherry while they are traversing on the rafts to get across to safety. All of these intersecting parts made me think in Requiem while Leon is sniping and protecting Grace in his area. What if we had to play through this area as Grace, carrying Emily, dodging the enemies, and figuring out a way to open the door could make an interesting survival sequence. And again, the same concept with using the lighter in different areas to escape the girl, or making other enemies susceptible to light could make an interesting gameplay with this area. This could be multiple modes in areas where you have to protect Emily by trying to make it to a safe area. What do you think? What about Alyssa? The idea of Leon having two endings, where one, we see him die, and two, Grace makes a different choice, and he survives, resulting in the fight with Victor. What if we had the same setup for Alyssa, where something could happen to change what we've seen, and we ultimately get to explore the Wrenwood Hotel a little bit more? Now, this idea comes with the idea that we get to see more of Lesser, probably play as Alyssa, but ultimately explore more of the surrounding area of the Wrenwood Hotel. So my idea would be we would defend against the threat of the infected that are affecting the area, while trying to escape what Alyssa probably knows is coming for her, which is why she's trying to get Grace to pack up so they can leave. It would be interesting for us to explore what Alyssa already knows in a scenario, but ultimately see more of Alyssa throughout the game. This would also expand the area around the Wrenwood Hotel, making this section more interesting and feel more than just a tutorial section. Could we see more of Zeno in an upcoming DLC? This idea surrounds the concept of what happens to Grace during her travel to Raccoon City. Could we see an extra game mode where we explore this section of the game? What is happening with Grace? Ultimately, could we play as Zeno? Okay, I'm just gonna throw this one out there. Even though I know Capcom is not gonna do this, but I do wish it was something that they would do, and that's let us play as Zeno. Throughout this gameplay, Zeno is built up as a threat that you will ultimately have to stop while you're playing through Requiem, but his character ultimately is cut short by Victor. We don't get to see more of him. We don't even get to fight him. But what if there was an extra game mode, DLC campaign that explores this concept? Could we see Zeno bringing Grace to Raccoon City, showing her through the Raccoon Police Department, bringing her to Ark, and ultimately see more of what that would look like from Zeno's perspective? But if we don't see it from Zeno's perspective, could we explore that from Grace's perspective? It is interesting that after the situation with Emily seemingly dying, Grace chooses to go with Zeno. But why is she ultimately going along with Zeno? The choice makes me wonder about her FBI expertise. It doesn't make a strategic choice, but why is she open to listening to what he has to tell her? Now, this concept of a Zeno storyline overlaps with a concept that I have regarding the BSAA while playing as Leon. We do get that cutscene of the BSAA set up in Raccoon City while you're looking for all of the parts to the detonator. It is here. We see an appearance from Zeno as he snipes the agents. But my question for this section is, how are the BSAA agents infected, specifically in later areas during Leon's playthrough? Now, there is something about this storyline that is left open. We are told that the BSAA is in Raccoon City, ultimately searching for something, but who gave the order? Who sent them there? But also, how did they end up infected? Now, when I think about this concept, it has more to do with the Willis Tower that has collapsed. With this area of the tower, the BSAA agents are present. But how do they get here? Were they there before the building collapses? Or were they there traversing the building, same as Leon? This is an idea that runs through my mind while playing through Requiem. While traversing this tower to get to one of the detonator parts, I can't help but wonder, how did these agents get here, and why are they in the tower specifically? What's also a conundrum is, why are the detonator parts spread across the city? But we know that it's a part of the gameplay loop of you needing to get these parts to escape, and this gives you something to do to explore. But my overall thoughts are, the BSAA agents are there for a specific reason, but why? Why would they explore this tower, especially if it has already collapsed? What would be the point? If it wasn't collapsed, then what took place? Now, I did want to dive into the BSAA agents in a different video, as it is interesting the story that Capcom has yet to tell. But this kind of leans into the idea of Jill or Chris being a part of Requiem's story. While Jill's appearance would be something that everyone is asking for and everyone wants to see, Leon's campaign kind of overlaps with what we could see or have seen or should have seen with the Jill campaign. She ultimately could have had the same PTSD about returning to Raccoon City as Leon, and we can ultimately see flashbacks of the trauma that she has gone through trying to escape Raccoon City and all of the things that she has gone through, even with the enemies that we see in Requiem. These are things that would also be traumatic for Jill. With Victor being a nemesis, nemesis is something that Jill had to encounter. Zeno being a clone of Wesker, Wesker is also someone that Jill had to encounter. This also makes an interesting concept of what if this entire campaign of Leon was played from Jill's perspective. Now, I don't know whether or not Capcom is thinking of holding Jill or Chris to the next main series title, but the presence of BSAA in Raccoon City screams that they should make an appearance in this game. The BSAA has had a story throughout that last few Resident Evil games, but Capcom has yet to tie up those storylines. As we saw at the end of Resident Evil Village, the BSAA has agents that we can speculate are rogue or working on someone else's orders. So my question here goes into the big divide from fans when it comes to action versus horror. Would a BSAA campaign be too action-focused? Would the fans complain about how the gameplay would be? I have already seen the Call of Duty comparisons when it comes to Chris Redfield's gameplay in previous games. Even the Hunk section drew those comparisons. But would this make a great Resident Evil game? And is this why Capcom doesn't fully dive into the BSAA? Same with the choice they currently have made, particularly with Grace, because it wouldn't feel like horror in Leon's perspective. It seems Capcom would have it hard if we bring the BSAA into focus. But for me, I think horror can be explored with Jill. But those are my thoughts on the scenario. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Of course, I can go on and on about this. But again, we did get mention of Chris at the end of the Requiem story campaign. So is it possible that the campaign would pick up from the BSAA agents rescuing Leon and Grace from Ark, and then we can see and explore what the BSAA was doing in Raccoon City? But that is my thoughts. I kind of dived into what I wanted to explore in another video, but hey, we'll see. I'll probably still expand the idea. Let me know your thoughts on this. What are your wishes for Requiem DLC? Comment down below and subscribe for more. This channel was built to explore Resident Evil and survival horror, including an upcoming novel that I'm releasing. So I will be diving more into Resident Evil or concept ideas, stories, and more on this channel. And if you made it this far into the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, and stay tuned for the next one. Okay, this isn't specific to DLC or bonus content, but I do wish Capcom went ahead and added the canine enemies across Raccoon City. It is kind of disappointing that you only encounter them during this scenario. I wouldn't mind if they would jump out from random locations while exploring Raccoon City. But that's it. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next video.